Welcome to Ahead of the Times, where today's news is so yesterday.
A second royal baby. Have they finally got it right this time?
The US considers airstrikes in Syria. Will there be trouble in paradise?
And in the discussion for Scottish independence, we won't be using poor stereotypes. We'll be discussing just how brave they are at heart.
Apple releases a new product. Is it taking naked pictures of you right now? For news on the royal baby, let's go to our senior white privilege correspondent, Ola.
Hi Toby, white privilege is definitely in the air as news leaks that Prince William and Kate Middleton, or as they are known, Wimbledon, are pregnant again. That's right, the royal penis is working, Your Highness. In fact, the royal penis is the hardest working member of the royal family. The news was leaked after the footage of the conception was uploaded to iCloud, prompting the palace to finally release the details on the symbolism and the steps of a royal conception. I have it right here, fresh from the palace. Okay, so first, the royal condom is taken by horse to the four corners of the former empire, then brought to the royal bedside. It is then purposefully cast aside. And that's symbolic of the royal decision to inseminate. As you can imagine, it's a very intimate royal affair. It's held only between the prince and the princess, her handmaidens, the sergeant-at-arms, the master of ceremonies, and the Archbishop of Canterbury. And protocol dictates that the ruling monarch must be present for it to be a legitimate royal succession. A royal spokesperson for the Queen has confirmed she was in good health at the royal event. The royal erection is begun with the sounding of trumpets and raised to the tune of Land of Hope and Glory. The royal foreplay is in the form of a short address given by the Queen to the dignitaries in attendance. The deed is given in 21 royal pumps, just to be decent and proper. The climax of the royal event is, of course, the traditional flyover by the Red Arrows and the performance of an allegorical drama known as the Withdrawal of the Sceptre. Here the royal rites are complete and the long royal tradition is upheld. My prediction, Toby, I think they'll keep it. Moving on to the state of affairs in the Middle East, let's go to our senior correspondent on neo-imperialism, Toby.
President Obama announced the US will be going on the offensive against the puff daddy of terrorist groups, ISIS, aka ISIL, aka IS, the Islamic State, the Caliphate, Jihad Boy Records. Much was made over language, as the administration initially wouldn't call it a war, instead promising to degrade and defeat ISIS. Degrade and defeat? Come on, this is ISIS, not someone in a bang bus video. In fact, that would be like calling a bang bus video a mobile infiltration and penetration strategy. The only difference between our wars and pornos is that pornos have an exit strategy. Then you have Assad, who's kind of the Rocky Balboa of dictators. Everyone counted him out, he keeps coming back, and he looks like he has brain damage. It's worth noting that the option to strike Syria had been considered many times before, and if we'd done it then, Syria might be a success story, like Libya or Iraq. It's worth noting that this story actually affects me personally, not as a journalist, as a human. You see, for the first time I met a Syrian girl yesterday. We were in a pub crawl on holiday in Barcelona. She was only 19. Between tequila shots, she told me she dreamed to someday become a famous architect, like Gaudi or Frank Lloyd Wright. And it was then that I realized that we all have the same dreams. Unrealistic ones, destined to be crushed by reality. I realized that Syrians are just like everyone else. They wait 2 hours before they tell you they have a boyfriend. And I asked her how she felt about Assad, because I'm not gonna flirt with someone who supports a mass murderer, unless they're really pretty. Well, not until after happy hour. Okay, fairly pretty. I'm 60% sure of it. She told me she supported her country, and so she was against people with guns making the decisions, whether that was Assad, or the rebels, or the Islamic State. It made me realize that, you know what, security is really the most important function of government, because that's what matters day to day to real people on the ground. So do I support airstrikes against Syria? No, because it's always the little people who suffer. Unless she doesn't text me back, in which case, yeah, go for it. Predictions for what will happen? I think ISIS will fail, because the Iraqis turned against us. And we didn't even cut off anyone's head. Yes, bombs will kill civilians. Personally, I think Syrians should just be able to decide their own fate with a referendum, where they can choose how they want to die. Bombings, beheadings, it's their call. What happened to self-determination? But speaking of cutting the heads off things, for the latest on Scottish independence, we go to our senior correspondent on countries that begin with the letter S, Ola.
The Scottish independence debate reached fever pitch as David Cameron, Ed Miliband, Nick Clegg all made very emotional appeals for Scotland to remain a part of the UK.
It's also important we make those arguments of the heart.
But if you walk away, you make this romance cry.
The Yes campaign's last-minute surge caused leaders to call attention to some of the unanswered questions in Scottish independence. What currency would they use? Would they still be a part of the EU? Would they be willing to take Newcastle with them? After England insisted Scotland would not be able to share the pound, economist Paul Krugman warned that Scotland would be a country without currency. And most economists thought it would be at least 10 years before Scotland had no money. After doubts about sharing the BBC, the Scottish government actually had to assure the people that they would still get Strictly Come Dancing and EastEnders, and withholding them could be the trump card that England plays. A Strictly Come Dancing audience is used to voting. Westminster even offered Scotland increased powers, rumoured to include licensing rights to a full Scottish breakfast, which is essentially just a full English breakfast with haggis and Scotch whisky and a deep-fried Mars bar. We're at an interesting stage in the debate where both sides are trying to out-positive each other. You know, the No campaign are doing it for the love of the Union, and Yes campaigners were recently heard shouting in the streets, even if you vote no, we still love you. But let's be honest, if after a secret ballot 50% of a married couple wanted a divorce, there are no happy times ahead. Regardless of the outcome, speculation has caused the pound to fall against the dollar. So my prediction is, Toby, I'm not going to lend you the £50 you asked for, because by the time Scotland leaves, you'll be able to pay me back with $5 worth of Walmart coupons. Speaking of money, for the latest on Apple's new product release, we go to senior things that cost a lot of money correspondent, Toby.
Apple this week announced the iPhone 6 as well as the Apple Watch, which is also their privacy policy. Its bigger screen will please customers for whom the iPhone's is too small, the iPad's too large, the iPhone 5's closer but not quite there, the iPad mini's a little too far. Finally, their suffering is over. And now the product everyone's talking about, the Apple Watch. The biggest breakthrough with the Apple Watch, engineers were finally able to eliminate an entire I from before the product's name. A mission given to the engineers by CEO Tim Cook, who told them there's no I in watch. To prevent the user's hand from blocking the screen, the watch will be controlled using a special dial on the side. Did anyone think that we live in a day and age when someone would invent a watch with a dial? The device will work with the iPhone 6 as well as the iPhone 5, although with the iPhone 5, Siri will sound slightly condescending. So will this be popular? On the one hand, smartwatches have failed to catch on before. On the other hand, it's an Apple logo you can strap to your wrist. People wonder if the market or the technology is ready. Let's not forget, there's still people who buy regular watches. For people who buy watches, technology is not the important thing. It's showing off. In fact, to take advantage of growing income inequality, Apple and Google are actually teaming up to release a Google Glass Apple Watch combo targeted at the upper class. So what's my prediction? Will the Apple Watch catch on? Only time will tell. Get it? Get it?
Yes, we got it. When's the release date?
Spring 2014. So you might say, the clock is ticking?
Yes, it's a little pun.
I'd prefer the term minute.
That's the end of our first episode.
You mean our first episode? When is the second?
Your time is up.